Okay, hi everybody. My name's Ying Louie. I'm here to show you guys how to do a very basic seminar on how to paint clothing, cloth, or bags of stowage and things like that, because everybody will be doing some kind of stowage or bag of some sort sooner or later, or a piece of clothing. Out there and available, people use basically oil paints or acrylic paints, and one of their best tools is your brushes. So always, like I said to you guys in the past, have the best decent brushes you can get. The brushes that I have here before you are Winsor Newton style sable brushes, and some of them aren't Winsor Newton. I have some from Raphael, some from Escoda, but these brushes are some of the best brushes you could ever get your hands on, and they're worth it for their mileage that you're going to go through. So as you brush, if you notice when they're wet, that they have this beautiful spring to. If you see that beautiful spring, you know you've got a good brush. That little spring is the magic of how well you can paint. This is a flat. Flats are basically used for spreading large amounts of paint, and then you have rounds, or like this, for detail painting. So you have your two different types of brushes. Both of them are Kolinsky Hair Sable, which is the more expensive brand, or the Red Sable, which is this one. It's the cheaper brand. Now, some of them have blends, which means that they have acrylic hairs, which is not going to be a good thing, especially when you have to deal with solvents, because what solvents is going to do is it's going to melt your paintbrush. Okay, so try to find real natural hair to use for your paints, especially if you're going to be dealing with solvent. Okay, so today I'm going to be doing two kinds of painting. One in acrylic paints. One of the colors one of the brands I use is this Vallejo color. Yes.
Can we ask questions as you go along?
You can.
Short question. You're mentioning sable brushes?
Yes.
You're talking about the spring. Will such a brush leave like a tram line with the paint? As
You mean streaks?
Yeah.
They will leave streaks only if your brush isn't clean. If you take care of your brush, you shouldn't have streaks, and it's also based on how well that you've diluted your paint, so it doesn't dry too fast, and understanding the fluidity of your paint. If it dries a little bit quick, then you use an acrylic retarder, which you can. I have an acrylic retarder here. You can add to your paint to make it last a little longer, and it won't dry as quick. And the idea is to have a smooth finish. So basically is you want to drag out your paint time so that you'll get a good smooth finish. So for acrylics, you use a retarder like this, or for oil paint, I use something called Grumbacher's Oil Medium 1. And you can mix that with your paint as well. Some people choose to use mineral spirits. Mineral spirits is a nice idea. That does dry your paint a little quicker. It also helps with the flow, but medium 1 works just as good. Okay, the other thing is that when you make an investment for these kinds of brushes, you have to take care of them. So two things that I use to take care of these brushes is Artist brand of brush soap. And basically after you've cleaned your brush in the water, you take your brush and you swish it across the soap and keep washing it, and it washes the paint out of your brushes. Now that's not 100% guaranteed that you're going to get it all out. And one of the other things that I like to use, which I don't have an actual container of, but Winsor Newton brush cleaner. Winsor Newton brush cleaner is one of the best brush cleaners I've ever seen. This stuff is very strong. It doesn't have a smell, but word of warning, don't let it contact into any plastic. It will stick to the plastic and melt it. So it tells you that this is strong. But for some reason, it's good for all kinds of brushes, including acrylic and synthetic brushes. So I'm a little bit surprised. So it's not bad. And even better, if you use it in your airbrush, it's fabulous. It cleans it out like you wouldn't believe. So it's great stuff.
Are you getting that from places like Curry's or?
Yes, you can buy this from most of the art stores, Michael's, Curry's, anybody who handles art supplies and things like that. But Windsor Newton Brush Cleaner has been one of the best brush cleaners and airbrush cleaners I've ever seen.
So why for the airbrush? What is it?
Because the brush cleaner has a way of getting into things that conventional cleaning doesn't for some reason. When you have dry paint in your airbrush and you think you've cleaned it, wait till you try this and you would be surprised what actually still comes out. So that's why I'm actually a little bit surprised about how well this brush cleaner really works. And the other nice thing is that it doesn't smell. So it's good in that respect. It says it's non-toxic, but I'd be a little wary about that. But it's been a very, very good cleaner. A very, very good cleaner for enamels, for acrylic paints, oil paints, everything. It's just been a phenomenally good cleaner. Now, when you can't believe that, what I'm saying is that when you clean your brush with the soap and everything, and you dip this brush again into the brush cleaner, you'd be surprised at the paint that comes out of that ferrule still onto cloth and everything. So when you see all the paint come out, then you know you've got a decently clean brush, right? And afterwards, wet the brush again, brush it across the brush soap. One of the nice things about doing that is it keeps a point to all your hairs on your brushes. Keep the hairs together and they will last you as long as the brush will last. Now, one of the things about painting and detail work is people tend to jab when they're painting, and when they jab, what happens with a fine pointed brush like this is it hooks the hairs, because it continually has the point being assaulted by this jabbing sensation, right? So after a while you actually will hook the hairs. So one of the things that I'm going to try and show you guys is how not to jab, rather to dab but not jab. Because I know how some people just love to just sit there and just poke at their models and their painting, and all your brushes are like hooked on the end of it, and it doesn't look good. The other thing I find that people do is when they use brushes like this, for example, dry brushing, what happens is the hairs stay together, but over time of you abusing the brush over dry brushing, the hairs start to open like this, and then you never get a good even coat of brush painting when you do so, right? So that is the reason why at the end of your painting session, to take your brush and to drag it across the soap, to keep the hairs together, and it stays that way. All right, so that's generally the ideas of, care for your brush. Some people use things like conditioner for like shampoo conditioner and things like that. That's also equally as well. You can do that as well. It's all up to you guys if you want to use a little conditioner in your paintbrushes. Okay, so having said that, I'm going to today present to you two methods of painting, one in acrylic and one in oil paint. Now, before I go there, I want to point out that you guys can get materials as in what's out there traditionally is in the plastic version that you can buy in a box, which is hollow at the end and stuff like that. Some of these plastic versions are not well rendered in plastic, and they're acceptable for stowage and things like that, which is what I'm doing today, but some of you out there like the more higher detail things. So next to plastic, you're going to find items like this. This is a resin piece. This is cast from resin, and if you look closely at the straps to the plastic version, you can see that the details are sharper, so you can see a better looking piece of folded fabric or whatever, and they show themselves off with a lot more detail. So when you put it in your models, it looks better, it looks more realistic. The other thing that you guys can also use to make your own packs and bags and things like that is putty. Modeling putties or plumber's putty. I use the plumber's putty here, and that's just rolling it out, folding it up, and making your own, adding your own straps with lead and their lead foil and stuff like that. So you can see the differences as we go along. Okay, one of the best things I find is the putty techniques, because they produce the best looking fabric and packs and things like that that you can put on vehicles and things like that. Okay, so having said these areas that you can look at your packs and bags to, I'm going to now get into the painting techniques and show you guys how I do the painting. Firstly, one of the things that I painted a little while ago was a plastic piece, and this was painted in acrylic. So if you look at your acrylic here, you can see in some respects, you can see some of the harshness of acrylic paint, and you may see some of the smooth blending of some sorts that are going along this. And it's great for your quick work if you want to do quick work. You want to get on with your model and you just want to do a rudimentary style of painting. This is what I call rudimentary style painting. And it is acceptable, and a lot of people do this work in figures and things like that. They have a lot more skill at it, wherein they can really make it look smooth and beautiful. It comes with practice, and it comes with a lot of patience and determination, and the willingness to prove to everyone that you can do it. But quick work is fast, and it's quick drying, and the nice thing about acrylics is they don't produce fumes. It's fast and easy to clean, and a lot of people choose to use it. The next thing I'm going to get into is painting with oils, and oils is smoother. The fine artists use it. I swear by it. I think it's great. So I'm going to show you both techniques on how it's done tonight so that you guys get an idea. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get into the quick work with painting acrylics so you guys get an idea of what acrylics will look like. Now, the interesting thing about painting with acrylics is that for the most part, you're only using one brush. You're not going to be using more than one brush because a lot of it is detail work. So I'm going to pick this very large item here, which I just painted just now, and show you guys how we start this off with an acrylic paint. Now, one of the interesting things about acrylic paints versus oil paints is that in art school, they always teach you to go from the lightest color to the darkest color. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it works the opposite. And how does it work in the opposite? Depends on the paint that you use. For this, I am going to use acrylic paints, which means you do go from the lightest color to the darkest color and gradually get it darker and darker. Going reverse, it's not as easy. I find in oil paints, it's the opposite. You start with the darkest color and you can bring it up to the lightest color. So you can see how see what I'm saying? That's different. So I start with acrylic going light to dark, and then from oil paints it's dark to light. But for now, I'm going to do my best to explain this. So here you're going to see little folds, little creases, and things like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to emphasize that. We're going to bring it up so you can see it better. So I'm going to start using the colors. I'm going light first. So I'm going to use this Vallejo paint here. I'm going to mix it up. So light. So basically you have to look at it and figure out, okay, where's the sun cast down onto this little piece, right? And I'm going to basically render the areas where I feel that the colors are going to come down and land onto this piece of fabric. And what you're seeing is what they call block technique. So I'm blocking in the colors. So I'm adding the areas where it's like a paint by numbers, and I'm going to put the light color here. Now you see, I'm not jabbing. I'm actually brushing it on. And that is how we try to do our detail work. I try to use the edge of my brush with the point and not poke the point right at my painting. So you may look at this and say, wow, that looks kind of blotchy, but that's the idea. You want it to look kind of blotchy.
So it's not a dry brush then?
No, it's wet, and it'll dry eventually. But you can see there's my lighter colors right now. Now I can go a little lighter, which I will, because I can see now on the screen that it's not as light as I'd like it to be. So I can go a little bit lighter by adding colors to it. So watch carefully, and I'm going to just try and do my best to make it go lighter for you. Oops, that's a little bit too much. Yeah, that's too much.
I think what you can see on the screen, you can't see. You can't see with the naked eye.
So you can actually start to see that I'm going a bit lighter now.
Is there a specific pattern that you're using, or is it just random?
I'm trying to follow the contours of the look of the fabric of this pack. So as you can see, I'm just following along the raised sort of surfaces that the light and the sun would touch, sort of lighten it up a bit more. I'm trying to look at where the light would fall onto this particular piece. So you can see how it hits on the top side like that? Yeah, you can see it there. Versus the bottom half, it doesn't look as bright. Okay.
Now when I paint with acrylics sometimes at home, I find it almost runs over top and doesn't stick sometimes. Am I
And
just not thinning it enough maybe? Or?
Too thin, it sounds like, if it's
Too
running.
thin?
If it's running.
No, it's not necessarily running, it just doesn't stick. It just, I find it ends up pushing across.
Doesn't adhere, you're saying it doesn't adhere, Jeremy?
Yeah, it doesn't adhere, yeah, it just ends up kind of pushing across the...
That means the thinner that he's using.
No, usually I let it prime. with
That's what I'm
a
wondering about.
Fine primer.
Is it glossy, the surface you're brushing on? Or is it flat?
Usually it's right after I've hit it with some, like a Tamiya gray fine primer.
And now is it flat when it goes down, or is it semi?
Probably semi, I guess.
So you can see there, that's roughly the look of it being a little bit brighter. Now what you're seeing is you're seeing a gradual change here. Okay, this is now the lighter color. Now I'm going to start taking it down to shade darker. And what I'm doing for my palette here is I've used the original color of the base color that I've just painted here, and I've added the yellows and the lighter colors to it. So running from the original base color here, I'm going to add the shadow into it a little darker. So I'm going to use this color here, add to it. So you can see it's going a little darker on my palette. It's going a little brown too because I'm using brown.
So the light green is a
Jeremy, can you swing it down?
Yeah, it's
on the
down.
On its which?
On the palette.
On the palette, sure.
Yeah. So you see, there's my base color. Here's my darker color I've added to it. It's going more of a brown color.
So you're darkening it with brown.
Yeah. So try to stay away from yellow. For example, white and black to use as your shades and shadows. The reason is whites and blacks will gray your colors, and graying your colors takes a lot of the pizzazz and the pow of your paint out. So for going lighter and darker, try to use like bright yellows and dark browns as your shadow colors. So that's what I'm doing now. So here we go, we're just going to start throwing this in. Now these are not exactly going to be easy to see by camera, but you'll see after a while how it's going to really start to show out. Now, I don't know if you guys can see this. If you look at my paintbrush and the tip of it, you'll see that it no longer has a point. If you look at it, the hairs they've done this. Or, sorry.
Nope. Put it a little bit
Yeah.
over the white there so I can see it.
Oh, sorry. So if you look at it, see how the point doesn't keep its hairs anymore? So when your brushes are starting to do that, you know it's no longer time for this brush to be used as detail work. Okay, so I want you guys to know the difference between good brushes and bad brushes. This one is worn out. Okay, so this is good for, you know, simple work that's about the size of this brush, but not for detail work. All right, so we're gonna move on. We want a good brush. So I just want you to see a bad brush. So this is what a good one looks like. See the point? That's what you want to keep. You want to keep a point like that versus a bad one. Okay? After a while, your brushes will start to do that, and that's when you retire them to the next stage. You know, beater brushes, you know, rough paintwork brush, whatever. So that's what this guy is going to be versus this guy. This guy's going to be my new detail brush. Okay? So any brush you got, you know, run it through the water, clean it up. Take it out, brush it on the soap. Wash it out again.
How much is a bar of soap?
They're not that much. Most bars of soap aren't that expensive, even these ones. And just brush this out. But see how I do this? I drag. I drag. So if you drag, your brush should be fine. And I can almost put the point back to this brush now, but it won't keep its point anymore because you've seen it when it's wet. Because that's your secret. You see them when they're wet, you'll know what a good brush is. So when you go to a store and you want to find a good brush, I suggest you guys all do a spit test. Okay? Everybody would be like, what's a spit test, right? People in stores get nervous when you do this, okay? Because they're like, why is this guy spitting? Okay? So when you get your brush, you're going to get your brush, and it's going to be in this nice little ferrule like this, right? And you're going to go to the store, you're going to take the ferrule, or sorry, the cover off. No, this is actually the ferrule, by the way. You're going to take the cover off, put a little spit in your hand, and actually run your hand, or run the brush into the spit. And what you're doing is you're inspecting that hair and seeing if it keeps as a point. If it keeps as a point at the time of purchase, you can buy this. But because you only spit on it, there's no big deal. You cap it back and you can put it right back. There's nothing wrong with it. You didn't really damage it. You just tasted it. So that I call as a spit test. When you go buy brushes like this, I suggest you do a spit test because you'll find some brushes won't keep to a point. Those are the ones you don't buy, so you can put them back. All right? So it's an easy way of picking a good brush versus a bad brush without wrecking the merchandise. Okay?
Gotta take your time,
All right. So back to the painting. So I've mixed this color, and now I'm just going to throw it into the recesses of the folds, okay? So as I'm doing this, the idea is to keep going darker. So you see I run it through the creases, along the areas where shadows are. And it may look a little rough, but trust me, it'll all fall in place eventually as I show you how it works. And the nice thing about this is that, you know, it cleans up and it dries quick. The one thing I will say to you guys is this. What I'm doing right now, I'm doing it for the act of doing this presentation for you. But in reality, what you should do is you shouldn't do what I'm doing because you're actually handling what you're painting. And the idea is to have it on something so you don't have to handle the paint when you actually mar the paint with your fingertips. So here's another example which I'm going to do for you soon. You can see I've mounted it on a toothpick. So please, if you can, mount your work on these things like this, on this toothpick, so you don't have to touch your work. Okay, the least amount of touching, the better off it is. Okay? But for today, I'm just going to show you this quickly so you guys get an idea how it's done. So you can see, if you can in the camera, that my shadows are starting to get darker. You know, just working it on the top half here. And I'm going to work to the side.
So you're putting it in the crevices now?
Oh yeah, you just want to put it on the crevices. Now remember, my light's falling down like this. Okay?
So your light's
So my shadows are coming back this way. Okay? So light's this way, shadows that way. So what I'm doing is I'm still blocking, if you guys are realizing what I'm doing. Now, there are the acrylic painters who paint figures and things like that, and their technique is a little bit more involved. I can show you what that's going to be like, but I don't want to lose you guys because it's more tedious. So I'm going to give you guys your basics here and let you guys play with it, and then I'll allow you all to you know, try your techniques with this later on and see where you want to go with it. Now, acrylics is the premier version most modelers are painting in. Acrylics is the one that is being sold now by companies like MIG, and I'm sure Adam Wilder has his own collection of stuff now. Vallejo. You can use Tamiya paints as well, but if you use Tamiya paints, I want you guys to be very, very careful because it's not easy to brush with and you have to keep it wet. If it dries, that's when it's going to work against you because it's going to pick up the colors underneath.
So are you saying that Tamiya are more adaptable for airbrushes?
I find that Tamiya is the colors to use for airbrushes, but what I'm saying is that you can brush Tamiya paint with a paintbrush.
So Vallejo would be your brand of choice to use your brush?
Right now it is because it's nice to use. The only thing I don't like about Vallejo is that it doesn't handle well. You can see it, some of the paint has come off already. So that's the reason why you want to put it on a stick or mount it on something else, because this paint doesn't handle. It doesn't handle well to being touched. Okay?
Sounds like my wife.
Okay, so I'm just going to run this through.
Great contrast.
Just try and do my best to finish it fast.
And how many colors would you use on a piece like that?
4, maybe 6 colors.
And you keep on mixing throughout the process?
Yeah. If you watch my palette, it will slowly, very, very slowly start to grow in mixed colors.
Ying, can you explain later the wet palette you're using?
The wet palette?
Yeah, this one here. Yeah.
Okay. The wet palette is a recent thing that I've run across that most of the acrylic painters are using. The wet palette is basically a palette where you can lay your paint on and keep it from drying. It's a great little invention, and it will stay wet for a long period of time, provided you give it a cover that keeps it almost airtight. This here is a little piece of, it's like a Tupperware style container. You can get them anywhere from the grocery store to IKEA to department stores and the dollar store. And this one actually did come, no, this one came from IKEA. So they're generally, you know, food dishes that you can get, and they're good. What you do is put a sponge in it, which you see on the bottom of my tray here. It's a blue sponge. I can buy that from the grocery store. It's a an antibacterial cleaning cloth, but it's still a sponge. Now, the other thing that I have yet to see is a palette paper that I can use that will not pill when it stays wet for long periods of time. This paper is from the art store, and it's a palette paper, and it's designed to not pill as it's soaked in water. So as I keep brushing it, you notice how paper will pill after a while it's soaked. Well, this one won't, and that's the reason why I have this. You can buy a pack of this paper, cut in smaller pieces, and do what I've done here.
And what's the name of that paper?
I'm not exactly sure. You have to look under palette paper for acrylic paint. I know the company Stevenson's makes it. Okay. Okay, so this bottom half, I'm just gonna generally run it through dark. I don't want it to stand out too much. Okay, so that's my first dark layer on top. I don't know if the camera can see it or not. I've added a little bit more darkness to the shadows and stuff. Now I'm gonna take it one more step darker. So I'm gonna take this dark color here in my palette and add it to the colors I've just pre-mixed earlier and I started. So adding this into that with the green.
So you would apply that in the deeper recess of...
You just basically go back into areas which are darker. And you basically go into these areas and you make them a bit darker, but a lot more finer. You're being... initially what I did was I spread it out, and here I'm just going after just the sharp creases now. So these are specific, real dark shadows. So it's the same idea of painting fabric on uniforms. But you have to learn, try not to overdo it. You only want to put it where it really counts. Because right now, I'm now into the detail work of this now. The areas where the shadows are really going to be shadows. Yeah, that's looking a lot better. Okay. So this is in the bottom, so I'm gonna really bring it up more. So you can see how I'm just going broader in my stroke. Okay. So there it is, a little darker than it was. So you can see how the colors are working in, right? Okay, right over area.
Slackers.
Now on the crease. Yeah. And the nice thing about this is I've been talking to you, my paint's been drying. And it's the good thing about acrylics. So one more time, a little bit more, add to it. And this should be it. And I'll show you the magic of this and how it works. You're wondering, magic, what's he talking about? I'll show you the magic. the idea of what you're seeing is I'm going over again and again and again.
And you're thinning it down to only with water?
Well, actually, I'm using it straight. I add the water in just to keep it wet, to keep the fluid from drying.
So that sponge is wet then?
Oh yeah. That's why they call it a wet palette.
It's magic.
Oh no, wait, I'll show you that in a second. Actually, I'm actually surprised it's actually turning out better than I thought.
It's a keeper.
Okay. Bottom side.
So are you following the border of the other paint, the other layers of paint that you're
Sort of. So you see what I've done so far? Okay. Now, this is where the magic falls into play. I'm going to clean this brush first. Alright. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this wide brush. This wide brush here. I'm going to make a little bit of a wash. Doesn't have to be a clean wash, or sorry, dirt. I'm going to make a little bit of a dirty wash. Nice little dirty wash, okay? The nice thing about acrylic, it's already dry, so I can do this with the dirty wash.
Does it soften the paint?
Not quite. What it does is it actually hides the roughness of the work.
It's a blender.
So when that's dry, it'll show up a lot better. And that's how you sort of take away some of the harshness of block painting, as I've called it, where I painted in patches. Okay, so let that dry and it'll slowly blend away. So I'm going to let that dry and I'm going to move on to the next project. And that is what I'm talking about. Okay, so I picked this really larger backpack. So this one I've already pre-done with a layer of acrylic paint, and anything you paint has to have a base color of acrylic. And from there you guys can build your oil paints on top of it, which is the idea. When you brush with oil paint, you should always start with a dry brush. Actually, no, I'll take that back. You start with a slightly dampened brush. So I'm going to use a little bit of this Grumbacher Medium 1. In my new palette. I'm gonna basically let it soak into my hairs of my brush, so it's slightly damp. Yeah, run this. Okay, now I'm going to use this paint here, oil paint here is my base.
So what color base is that?
What color? It's in like an olive, it's like an olive color oil paint. I can show it to you in a little while, but right now I just want to just basically get this underway. So what you're seeing is oil paint has the consistency of butter. If you look at how I'm brushing this on, it looks like butter. Don't expect it to be nice and neat. It doesn't need to be. You can make a mess, which is one of the things I like about oil paint. And I'm using a very large brush to liberally just cover what I'm doing. Now, the one detractor about oil paints is time. Time, because oil paints take up to a week to dry. But they provide the best looking effects I've ever seen.
Can you use an accelerator?
You can, but how would I put it?
It takes away?
No. It depends on the supplier of paints. Adam Wilder produces a line of oil paints right now that has a quick drying oil. I've yet to try it, but when you have time to paint, like the 5 days to paint it, it actually, you have some flexibility of time, and you need it to make it look better. So here, I basically just liberally covered my pack with one color. All right, so there you see the first base color of oil. You need a layer of oil for the other oils to stick to it and work with you, okay? And one of the things I'm gonna tell you is that when you paint with oil, you use more than one brush. You've already seen I used the first flat. Okay, I'm going to go down to another size. This is another flat, slightly smaller. This one I'm going to use dry. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start going dark to light. You remember how earlier I was going light to dark? So I'm going to go dark to light now. I put my first layer of oil in. Now I'm going to use the first layer that's going to be dark. The nice thing about oils is they blend really well, and that's the secret about how nice this is. So here, I'm going to start immediately into the areas where there's going to be a shadow, for example. And because this pack is so big, you can actually see what I'm doing. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm layering my oil, my dark colors in the areas where there could be a possible shadow. And the technique about oil paint is learning to take away. So as I put it down, I can take it away. And you see how nice the little mounting for this thing is, and how nice it is. I can just paint, rotate. So what I'm doing here is the same as almost similar principles as painting a flesh tone on a head. but I'm not using flush tones, I'm using the other traditional colors to paint the fabrics. So what I'm doing right now is outlining where the shadows will be.
So would you still use the same sort of consistency if you're using a smaller scale? If something is, say, this looks like it's 1/24 to 1/35.
My techniques and principles are the same. It doesn't matter. The only thing is that when you go smaller scale, your brushes tend to go smaller. When you use larger scale, your brushes tend to go bigger. Okay, that's my second brush. All right, now, the next phase you're going to look at is I'm going to start taking it away, okay? So taking it away is, I'll start here, and you can see what I'm doing. So I'm pulling the color away from the areas of shadow. And you can see it slowly blending into the material. Occasionally clean off the brush, keeping it decent, and just come back and do it again.
And this with no thinner on the brush, just the brush itself?
Just the brush. And that's the other thing about painting with oils. See how nice and smooth that looks compared to the other areas I've done it? The other thing is that sable hair brushes do is they leave a beautiful smooth finish. It's not rough looking or jagged and everything, and the hairs are so resilient and they keep their bounce to them, and it's a beautiful secret about how good your painting is your brush. And the other thing is, don't worry about making a mess. One of the most beautiful things about oil paint is you can take it away and correct it and still have time and not worry that you've messed it up. Because really, right now, what I'm doing is the art of taking paint away. So if you make a mistake, you can still take it away. So you see the bottom half now, how it's looked so far? Okay, let's see if I can get into this now. And every once in a while, just clean your brush out. Just keep going. Yeah, if it's dry. how it's just blending in. The harsh shadows are just slowly starting to disappear. Okay. All right. So basically you can go in and just keep cleaning up until the area becomes lighter and it stops looking so messy.
I got a few of them. I was gonna do tonight. And that one,
And so far you can see how it's looking so far.
this here.
Sure. Oh, that's the way to do it.
All right. That's now a brush.
Was it dry, matte, or glossy?
Because it depends on what you put into your paint. For example, the Artist Medium 1 here will help it to dry, but not glossy, but satin.
That's right.
If you use mineral spirits, it will dry more flat. Now,
What are you using?
I'm using Artist Medium 1 because I want the flow.
It's called Artist Medium 1.
Yes. So here, I'm literally,
And
just,
what would be the ratio of your paint versus this medium 1?
it's something you have to do by eye. You have to look at the consistency by eye. You can play. I'll have to show you how you play and to see what you want in the paint. All right. Okay, so that's going dark. Now I'm going to go light. All right? I'm going to show you guys how to go light. Back to my original brush. Light. Now light you want to put in the areas where the light's going to cast onto the fabric. Now you guys have seen on models, they've done this, they dap these different speckle colors all over their model tanks and their surfaces. You ever seen that?
Yeah.
And then they start dragging it away, pulling it away. Well, it's the same idea of what I'm doing, but it's more specific. So here, I'm gonna like literally leave little dragged whites, or sorry, yellow spots along the surface here in different variations. So like earlier, I'm sort of painting by numbers. I'm painting in blocks, as you can see it, just all over the place in a way. Only with areas where I feel that the light is going to come in contact with it. So here in the top, so. And of course this is a light color, so you figure that the bottom of the pack shouldn't see any light, and that's right. That's not where I'm going. Okay, so now it looks pretty harsh, right? This is where we smooth it all out. New brush.
And the fact that it's soil, you don't have to worry about it drying too fast. You have a lot of time to work it.
That's right.
You're mixing it with the.
So you use oils on your vehicles as well, not?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I use them on everything.
I put that.
It's great for weathering too, actually.
When you're
Oils
weathering,
on-
oh, sorry?
Sorry, oils on vehicles, you'll see, for example, Adam Wilder's coming in to Hamilton, and Adam is a great guy to watch. He's got one on YouTube. I think he's got it on a DVD as well, where he actually paints a vehicle using oil paint, and it's just he's very good at it. I met him. He's a really good guy. But he shows people how to use oil paints. Now, you see along here, this edge here that I've just left a little stippling line of colors onto? I'm gonna fade that so it looks like it's just a raised surface now. You're gonna watch.
What was that guy's name? Adam Wilder?
Yeah.
Hey, Tom.
See that surface now? See how it just stands out? Same thing on the bottom part of the flap here. See how it just fades gently on the pack?
Oh, that's good.
So you can see how it's all, everything's sort of, you know, softly blended into each other. And that's one of the beautiful things I love about oil paint. Now, the one detractor that you always have to be keeping an eye out for oil paint is that little bits of dust and hair, this stuff is like a magnet to it, right? So you actually have to inspect it every once in a while to make sure that you don't have it mixed into your oil paint. So, for those who have a hard time seeing things, I'd suggest that you take a magnifying glass and inspect everything you do. I painted a face once, it looked great. I photographed it and it was like, what's wrong with this? Why does it look so weird? I took a magnifying glass to it, I found out there was little bits of dust in the paint. So that's my little thing to you guys. Always inspect your work, take a good look at it, make sure you didn't leave dust in there. And one of the worst culprits for dust is your brushes. People who leave them in their paint cups and end up, these things attract dust. So make sure your brushes are clean, and you know, if you have them you know, open end up in a cup, always wash them out, because you're gonna get dust in these things and you're not even gonna think about that. So anyways, light to dark, here it is. That's how well it's nice and blended. Now when this thing dries, it'll look really nice. So everybody, that's my seminar really quickly, as best I can show you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Thanks, Ying.
Well done.
That's cool.
So what?